I spent a lot of time doodling in middle school. A lot. I'm sure most of you Pokémon fans in the audience can relate. In fact, I'll wager that you have, at one point or another, made self-insert characters and imagined your own journey. Or am I projecting? Well, at any rate, today's video is a showcase of some comics I wrote at 13, when I should have been paying attention in class. The adventures of Matt McAutumn going on a Pokemon journey because... F it, I hated the rut that was my life. Yep, there it is. I have about 60 more pages like this, but as you can see, some of it is faded and hard to read. I'm not gonna bother translating the dialogue, it's condensed and juvenile and not the point. What matters is the creative fire that first sparked in mediocrity, but if nurtured, has potential for truly great storytelling down the line. I'm going to keep showing pages while giving the comic synopsis, and what was going through my head then and now. First page, we have our hero, Matt, in his backwards cap. I just started playing Pokemon's Gold and Silver, so, I wanted him to look like Kenta. He's digging for treasure in a spot where one of his relatives hid it. I never bothered considering who or why, though looking back, I guess it would have to be like a pirate or something. Actually, it'd need to be a higher caliber criminal, because Master Ball technology has got to be way classified. Anyway, Matt's all pleased because he's acquired a Master Ball and a ton of free other Pokeballs. He and his sister go on a trip, not to any Pokemon lab, but to visit his aunt at the lake. I didn't even consider it at the time, but this would have been Johto Route 45, the only place an unlicensed trainer could capture a Dratini. Matt's somehow oblivious to this. He just kinda ducks his aunt, takes a kayak, and heads out with a super rod. Doesn't even put on a life vest. So far, first impressions reveal Matt to be obsessive, hasty, and socially inept. You'll have to bear in mind that I'd drawn him 20-some times by then, and it was dawning on teenage me that it would likely be thousands before the journey was over. That, and I had gone through a whole piece of paper without even meeting Dratini. A whole piece! I had to work faster, and if it meant killing my social life, then so be it. This was a self-insert through and through. Third page, we discover that it was just a Staryu that had pulled Matt to deeper water, so he breaks it off, leaving the hook in it. Dick move, but 2 hours later, he's kicking himself for not capturing it. It's lucky for him that a Dratini shows up just then. There are worse things to use a Master Ball on than an Uber-tier Pokemon, but what a catastrophic waste that would have been. I was only ever my own audience, so I probably wasn't even factoring in character likability. It gets me wondering why this mattered to me. This was around 2001-2002, just before the advent of social media. I had nobody to show it to, even locally, so it was doomed to obscurity. Then why bother? I suppose it's the same reason why a bird sings with no audience. God created it so. And I, made in the image of that same creator, just needed to create. So I channeled my wishes through the lens of Pokemon, and here was the result. Alright, so Matt has a Pokemon now, and he wants to test it out on a wild Psyduck. At first, Dratini seems ready to attack, but then he punks Matt and just summons a rainstorm instead. Matt gets swept up in a delayed Twister attack and ends up crashing through the roof of a nearby Pokemon Mart. The shopkeeper treats it as an everyday occurrence, and we discover the reason for his apathy. Apparently, he failed as a Pokemon trainer and now has to sell everything he had just to make ends meet. It's not much of a life. Matt shows him Dratini, and he's all impressed, commenting on how rare it is. The guy's name is Rick, former Cool Trainer Rick. It seems they're both cut from the same cloth. Both were called to a life of adventure, but both have rare Pokemon that won't listen to them. Rick considers cutting his losses and resuming the journey, this time in a role of mentorship. Unfortunately, as you can see, the next couple of pages didn't scan well. I'm showing you this one as an example of why I'm not posting the whole comic strip. Whenever this is the case, I'll just sum up what happened and move along. Dratini snuck off, Team Rocket tried to capture it, and Rick helped fend them off with his remaining loyal Pokémon. Dratini got poisoned in the fight, so Matt begged Rick to fly them to the nearest Poké Center, which he did. If you're wondering what Jesse and James are doing in this comic, or why they just so happen to appear hours after Matt's journey begins, but also conveniently right after he's made a powerful friend, just remember, I was in my early teens. Plot contrivances come with the territory. I'm not excusing them, but making these mistakes early on helped me to learn from them later. Speaking of mistakes, this next page is filled with walls of text. So, Matt goes back to the lake house and tells his mom that he wants to go on a Pokémon journey. At first, she's like, "Lol, what?" But when Matt explains that Rick will be his guide and that he's got a Dratini for a starter, Mom is surprisingly cool with it. Matt's sister Joyce chooses that moment to brag about having her own Pokémon. Turns out, it was the Staryu that got Matt lost, and she caught it with one of his Pokeballs. Matt's pissed about this. Obviously, I was setting up a bunch of parallels to the anime, though consciously or subconsciously, I don't remember. Matt is Ash, driven but flawed. Dratini is Pikachu, disobedient at first, but more loyal after hardship. Rick is Brock, the seasoned older guy. Team Rocket is, well, Johto Team Rocket. And Joyce is Gary/Misty, the conceited bitch with the Staryu. The show got in my head. So even though Matt has 148 more Pokeballs, he demands that Joyce pay him back for the one she stole. I guess it's the principle of the thing. They decide they'll settle it with a battle. If Joyce wins, the Pokeball is her prize, and if she loses, she'll join Matt's journey as a penance. I've skipped most of the battle choreography since it's faded anyway, but you can see that Matt wins. Dratini used Thunderbolt, you see. But don't worry, he's totally not Pikachu. Mom drops them off in Viridian Forest, because I decided to go the traditional Kanto route before attempting Johto. Joyce immediately starts whining about how hot and tired and bored she is. The noise attracts the ire of a wild Weepinbell, whose natural instinct is to kill her on sight. It makes for a suitable first capture encounter for Matt. Look, I know that Weepinbell isn't a true Viridian Forest native, but the biome fit, and it was one of the few Pokémon I could repeatedly draw. This next page is mainly battle choreography, climaxing in the inevitable Weepinbell capture. Therefore, I'll comment on some stuff I've been meaning to talk about before. You might have noticed that I have a uniformity in every episode, opening with a 4-panel recap of the last time, and then doing a mock intro ripped from the Orange Islands theme song. It took up a third of the page, and was incredibly time-consuming, but it helped me to focus. Also, Dratini is the starter Pokémon. Why did I choose this? Oh, so many reasons. First, Dratini is best boy. Look at his eyes, look at his little ears, he's adorable. Second, he represents ultimate potential. If you're gonna take time and trouble to train Pokemon, don't trifle with Rattata, Pidgey, and friggin' Caterpie. Dragon's where it's at. Finally, he's versatile. Dratini can use Surf, Thunderbolt, Flamethrower, and he's resistant to all those types. How is he not the official mascot? Are you kidding me? Alright, I went off on a tangent. Skipping forward a bit, Matt caught a Pidgeotto as well, just like Ash did. Now, here we find our heroes later that night. They're trying to sleep, but Joyce keeps running her mouth right up to the moment that she passes out from exhaustion. But then a wild Pinsir shows up, making her scream and alerting the others. Matt uses Rick's Pokédex to identify it, and just like in the anime, the wild Pokémon politely waits for him to get done. The lightness of my pencil made for a faded scan, but I'm sure you get the picture. Matt sends in Pidgeotto, and the type advantage wins him another teammate. My only justification for this was Pokemon Episode 4, in which the trainer Samurai also has a pincer. If him, why not me? I mean Bat. And it was much easier to draw than Scyther. With this, I'd effectively fulfilled another trope. My trainer now had a proper Pokemon team. Skipping ahead a little, the group experiences its second Team Rocket encounter, in the most blatant plagiarism of the anime yet. That and the most blatant power imbalance. This is supposed to be Jesse and James by the end of Johto, with Pokemon that have fought alongside them through 2 regions and the Orange Islands. Collectively, they own an Arbok, Weezing, Victreebel, and an experienced Meowth. A rookie trainer who just started yesterday stands no chance. But what happens when 13-year-old me sharpens his pencil? Dratini proves the superior Serpent against Arbok. Victreebel eats James, rather than attacking Weepinbell, its inferior. Well, at least that's anime consistent. Meowth cowers before pincers. And Matt's level 9 Pidgeotto kills James's level 40-something Weezing. I guess it would have ended the same way if Rick had stepped in, but this power play was just silly. Skipping ahead past both dialogue dumping and poor scanning, Matt discovers that Joyce snuck off and defeated the pewter gym with her water-type advantage. Not surprising, but Matt is furious at being one-upped by his bratty sister. Thus, he bursts in to challenge leader Flint, who introduces himself as Brock's father, since Brock's off traveling with Ash. Flint accepts Matt's challenge, sending out a Dugtrio as the vanguard, in a rock-type gym. Look, don't judge me, Geodude and Graveler are really hard to draw. You think like circles with arms and eyes, but there are little subtle ridges that are hard to replicate effectively. I actually think I did a pretty good job for a novice. There's no proper banter at any point, but in my defense, the show wasn't all that creative either. It was mostly battle choreography, poses, and zoomy backgrounds, and I friggin' nailed those! Here, I'll treat you to the whole thing. Matt's Pidgeotto and Dugtrio slash each other to ribbons in a double KO, and then Matt sends in Pinsir to finish the job. They've done no training apart from the prior battle with Team Rocket, but F it, drawing takes forever. Just fight Gym, get badge, and move on, thought little me. This is a classic case of all style, no substance. Oh, I've hit all the tropes. A dream of Pokemon mastery, assembling of companions, star Pokemon and team, travel, battles, rivalry, rocket stalkers, and now the quest for gym badges. But goddamn, Matt is such an NPC in this episode. Why the hell is he driven to do this? Why did he care that Joyce happened to get a badge before him? When is Rick gonna get some justification for his existence, traveling along for the ride? It was just so soulless. There was no narrative lesson to be gleaned from this episode, except what not to do. I skipped ahead to the party heading into Mount Moon Cave, where it's super dark. Matt sees something glowing ahead, which ends up being a moonstone. However, when he goes to add it to his bag, he notices that his pack was already unzipped. In a totally unrelated incident, they meet Joyce at the other end of the cave, who'd run off again. She's somehow managed to capture the elusive Clefairy. Team Rocket shows up to try stealing it, but Clefairy does the old Alan snack bar and blows them to hell. Yeah, that happened in the actual show more than once. A Pokemon used Metronome, and somehow the randomized move turned out to be Self-Destruct or Explosion. I guess teenage me thought that it just worked that way in the anime version. In any case, after Team Rocket blasts off again, Matt realizes that Joyce robbed him blind in the dark. He roars that she owes him double now, but let's be real. Joyce probably stole more like 12 Pokeballs. Huh, I sure am skipping a lot of front pages. Blame the scanner. So, a wild Abra appears and teleports the party to Nugget Bridge, north of Cerulean City. There, Matt and company are faced by 3 bridge trolls in Team Rocket uniforms, whom they must defeat to proceed. As per usual, it's a complete one-sided slaughter, which wouldn't be so bad, except afterward, the head goon congratulates Matt on being super-duper special. God, the eco-masturbation in this episode was truly egregious. I'd like to think that it's just a phase that we all go through when we first discover that we aren't actually the center of the whole universe. You know, coping before acceptance. Sadly, all too many unrepentant narcissists never grow out of it, choosing their delusion over reality. It would explain the clown world we're living in today. I had a lot of scanner trouble with the next few pages. Thankfully, it's nothing too important. Joyce once again sneaks away while Matt isn't looking and wins the Cascade badge. Matt rages and stomps off to even the score again. Because Misty went away with Ash, the 3 Cerulean sisters are now the gym leaders. Matt counters their Staryu and Starmie with Weepinbell and Dratini. I guess I'm glad to see Rick giving him actual advice this time to strategize. I don't know. I'm struggling to think of what to say about this battle. Pretty stereotypical Pokémon stuff. Both Pokémon keeping parallel to the other's movements, each canceling the other out. We get a Solar Beam contesting an Ice Beam. That hasn't been done to death. Yeah, I definitely ate up everything from the anime, and it shows here. I suppose imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Another forward skip, but nothing of value lost. Dratini does manage to overcome Starmie, as if there was any other way this could have ended. The Cerulean sisters give Matt his badge, then somehow turn the conversation to the anime protagonists, Brock, Misty, and Ash. I think that I'd planned for Matt's group to meet theirs at some point, but it never got that far. Matt will only acquire one more badge before dropping out of the program like Rick did. God, I was such a voice of the first generation. That'll happen when so many fans follow the same template. Anyone who's co-authored roleplays on forum boards knows how it is. They start off with such enthusiasm, but when checkmarking a list of tropes is all that's driving the narrative, they flake out. Teenage me wanted the best part of the story to be Matt and Dratini's growing friendship. But, as of now, Joyce's hooligan shenanigans are the only parts I like. The only reason I'm showing you this next page, in spite of its low scan quality, is that it's a pivotal point for the plot to come. Team Rocket dresses up like the Pokémon IRS, and trick Matt into submitting his Pokémon for inspection. Matt, like the gullible Ash Ketchum before him, fails to notice their flamboyant hairstyles, and hands over all his assets. The Rockets then blow their cover, and a pissed-off Rick blows them up with his Charizard. Unfortunately, Dratini gets caught in the blast, and is hurled into the nearby sea. This situation required a heavy dose of stupidity and plot contrivance to take place. Once again, I'd like to comment that these were mistakes, which I learned not to repeat. If anyone out there listening aspires to be a writer, hear me now. Don't be afraid to tell a story, lest you screw up like I did. It comes with the territory. I recommend getting a trustworthy friend to provide honest critiques, and allow yourself to be refined in the fire. Okay, so when Matt fails to find Dratini, he gets way depressed, and Rick has to carry the party for a bit. Meanwhile, Dratini is floating stunned in the water, until a female Dratini happens along, and drags him to another location. He awakens to find himself amidst an underwater colony of Dratini, where he's accepted as a long-lost comrade of theirs. Dratini's first instinct is to search for Matt, but the friendly locals assure him that he's better off staying with them. Sometimes, you can tell what's going through a person's head by the art he creates. I think teenage me, a social pariah at the time, was secretly longing for acceptance and female companionship. I think I was projecting my desires into Dratini's situation, so that he'd be tempted to embrace the new life that was just handed to him. He totally should have, in retrospect. Matt's character is rather shallow and self-absorbed, and Dratini could do a lot better than him. Once again, skipping ahead. I'd actually have skipped this page too, but the latter half has consequential plot material. For some reason, Matt boards the SS Anne, thinking a cruise was his best chance at searching the Vermilion Coast for Dratini. Joyce captures a Psyduck, but who cares? Jesse and James are back again, and they have this ingenious plan to bomb the boat mid-cruise so that they can steal everything in the explosion's aftermath. I honestly can't tell you what was going through my head when I wrote that. I guess in cartoon shows, bombs don't kill people? But then, what was Team Rocket's plan? They were trailing the SS Anne in a floating barrel. Were they going to scour the wreckage, then paddle back to the land with the spoils? But wait, if this was the Johto Journeys timeline, didn't the SS Anne sink like 5 seasons ago? I guess I had yet to learn the lesson of plot continuity. Alright, so 2 pages later, Matt gets caught up in a Pokémon battle with some balding middle-aged passenger. Somehow, the battle reveals Team Rocket's bomb. Meanwhile, Dratini has resolved to go searching for Matt rather than accept his new life among his own kind. By sheer coincidence, he happens across Matt's ship, and Joyce spots him. Matt and Joyce both demand that the other get over here at the same time, and the bomb detonates, destroying the ship. I was so proud of that dialogue as a kid. Will you get over here? This is important! True enough, I suppose, but Joyce was by far the more reasonable of the two. Yeah, a bomb's a big deal, but what the hell does Matt expect Joyce to do? Defuse it? She's like 11 years old. On a separate note, Rick owns a cloister with a transparent shell, so he can effectively use it as a submersible vehicle. I actually still think that's freaking awesome. If you look at the summary on this next page, you'll see that Matt got thrown into the ocean during the blast, but Dratini saved him. Matt faints, then awakens at the edge of the Safari Zone, the closest point of land that Dratini could take him. I failed to mention this before, but the Dratini colony was beneath the Safari Zone, and they've got some sort of war going on with the local Chansey populace. Dratini tells his girlfriend that Matt can help in their dumbass cause. A little later, Matt fishes up Dratini's girlfriend. At her cries of distress, Dratini initially shocks the daylights out of the aggressor, but then realizes it's Matt. They have a tearful reunion, and soon after, Rick and Joyce conveniently meet up. Oh, speaking of convenient, you may have noticed that Matt tripped and 6 of his Pokeballs just happened to capture an entire squadron of hidden Chansey. Or maybe it was 5. Whatever. If you find that offensively delusional, then congratulations! You might even believe that men are not women. Between the faded pencil work and the lack of substantial content, I skip past the incident where Jesse and James use even more bombs to try knocking out the warring Dratini and Chansey for capture. The factions set aside their differences to blow the rockets away. Then, upon seeing the collateral damage done to the other Safari Zone Pokémon, they combine healing techniques and Revival Rain to restore the populace. All is well again, thanks to Matt's amazing talent as an arbiter of peace. For the record, the Dratini and Chansey had been quarreling over which of their species was of greater value due to their rarity. Yeah, I know, my autism is showing. Cattle and chickens might as well be fighting over which of them tastes better to humans for all the sense it makes. Please allow me to reiterate that I grew past this. All it takes is a little humility and a willingness to learn from superior authors. It helps if you take joy in the stories that are told well. We're getting close to the end. After the Pokémon of the Safari Zone recover, Matt gives Dratini a choice: to stay with the locals or continue onward with him. Dratini succumbs to his Stockholm Syndrome and chooses to press on. Thus, we resume the adventure to find Matt and Joyce bickering as usual. They're initially on the water, but soon discover a cave leading to land. It's the Diglett Cave of Vermilion City, and Team Rocket appears to be causing mischief inside. Right about now, a thinking person might remark on how improbable the timing here was. Matt's group just happens across the very spot where Jesse and James are causing trouble, at the exact moment that they're making their move. You'd be right to be skeptical. Yet another lesson I've learned since middle school is this: a world exists beyond the immediate present. If you wish to make something happen, allow it under realistic circumstances, and not merely on a whim. Well, I'll say this in my defense. At least this part wasn't boring. The Rockets are about to steal some random trainer's Geodude when Matt shoves their asses into a cave pool. For some reason, Meowth has a Super Vac sitting on standby. You know, like in the anime. It sucks up everyone's Pokeballs, but then the random guy has his Geodude use self-destruct because explosions are fun. One Allahu Akbar later, the problem's solved, and everyone goes on their merry way. You know what? I've been kind of a wet blanket for the last half hour, but if you turn your brain off, this is actually pretty entertaining. See, that's the thing. There's potential with this. There's expression and physics and surprising attention to detail in some panels. Look how far I've taken this comic by now. It's nothing compared to the prose, but this labor of love exhibits the quintessential passion that comprises the arts. Let the creative flame be stoked. Let it refine the artist over time. New page, new recap, new copy-paste of the Pokémon logo. So, remember how in the anime, a random Jigglypuff started stalking the travel party? Well, here it's a Diglett. The crew arrives in Vermilion Poké Center, and Joyce is about to sneak off again when Matt holds her back. Probably a good thing, because true to the anime, Gym Leader Surge is still a brutal battler. Diglett apparently wants to help out for some reason, but Matt has his doubts. Again, irrational behavior aside, I find the page amusing. Matt yelling at Joyce, Chansey telling Matt to shut up, the freshly electrified trainer giving his ominous warning, Rick chewing Matt out. Finally, it seems that teenage me took the time to stop and smell the roses. It's too bad that the whole comic couldn't be like this, where people are acting like characters rather than vessels of fantasy wish fulfillment. Well, this is how you learn. Matt sees a room full of Lieutenant Surge's victims, complete with a "Surge did this" sign hanging overhead, and resolves to break the cycle. I know, same recycled plot from the anime, I was a blatant plagiarist. Matt enters the gym, Surge calls him a weakling, and just that one petty insult is sufficient to break Matt's brain. He rees, sends out Dratini to attack, and Surge proceeds to destroy him with a single thunderbolt. I mean, wow. I think this marks the first time that Matt lost a proper battle, but it's overkill. He talked a big game, then got bitch-slapped immediately. Talk about a shattered dream. 27 pages now, I've been copying the Orange Island lyrics. So you wanna be a master of Pokémon? Do you have the skills to be #1? Clearly, Matt doesn't. He's impulsive, rushes everything, and never takes any time to strategize. Oh, yeah. Team Rocket was waiting to ambush Matt outside the gym, post-battle, when he was helpless. Matt's hasty nature actually proves useful when he plows right past them, even hitting them with the doors. Later, as Matt prepares to face Surge again, the Rockets re-emerge in their signature Meowth balloon. Matt feigns a rematch with the gym leader, but both combatants direct their attacks at the balloon instead. Jesse and James were never that bright, which I guess comes with the territory if you're a villain on a kid show. Still, this was an exceptionally stupid thing of them to do. What was the plan? Phase 1, sweep in on a giant floating target. Phase 2, question mark. Phase 3, profit. They're a South Park meme. I treated them like bowling pins, things I could set up just to knock right down again. Their presence serves no purpose but to artificially lengthen the episode. Just like the anime. Diglett re-emerges here, first to bury Team Rocket in a giant hole, then to crash Matt's gym battle. why does it want to help him so bad? Simple answer, the author was an egocentric doof. Alternatively, maybe a Raichu killed Diglett's parents. Anyway, Matt still thinks it's a bad idea, and he's actually correct about this, but Rick keeps insisting he use it anyway. Before Matt has time to assent, the referee loses patience and enforces the match. Experience is the best teacher. If any of you listeners have ever played against Surge yourselves, and you tried using Diglett as a quick solution to his electric typing, you soon learned the hard way. Raichu has normal type moves, and Diglett is more glass than cannon. One could argue that the game stats aren't everything, and even the canonical anime took creative liberties, but those are bad arguments. The game is Pokemon's cornerstone, and every real-life trainer's common experience. Rick has failed as an advisor. If I'm being generous, I suppose that my wanton disregard for Pokemon level progression makes for unpredictable battle choreography. Matt, who met this Diglett hours ago, commands it to use Earthquake, and presumably it does. Or maybe not, because whatever it did, Raichu isn't injured. It counters with Surf, which Diglett predictably digs to escape from. Then Surge calls for a Thunder, counting on the wet ground to channel the voltage. It doesn't kill Diglett. Well, duh, ground type, right? But then why would the electric gym leader of all people not be savvy to this? And if it worked for Ash in episode 5 of the anime, why not here? Are we back to video game logic? Okay then, Surge now has Raichu use the unavoidable attack Swift. Diglett has base defense 25 and base hit points 10. Unless he's secretly a one-headed Dugtrio, he's dead. Honestly, he was doomed from the beginning. Surge sends Raichu into the hole after Diglett, presumably to drag its corpse out like a ratting terrier. However, Diglett is apparently level 50 and still fighting. I'm not even going to dignify the remainder of this battle with commentary. The important thing is that Matt wins with a Pokemon that isn't even his, who vacates the premises the very second that he ceases to be convenient. Truly, this was a masterful display worthy of a gym badge. This marks the last episode with an ending. There's one more to go, and I guess I'll put it on the screen for you to see, but I distinctly remember becoming creatively fatigued at this point. It seemed a shame to just stop the story after coming this far, but really, what story was I telling anyway? I started with a desire for adventure, figuring that once I set up some characters and got to drawing, the rest would take care of itself. It did, until it didn't. I was well aware, even at the time, that most story artists don't get it right the first time around. There are a few rare exceptions, and I hope to be one of them. I wasn't. And at the time, it was a blow to my morale to consider how much effort I'd wasted. But now, 20-some years later, I don't consider this comic a waste. It is a major part of my creative origins. It is the puppet before he became a boy, the homunculus before he had a soul. The wish to tell a worthy story was there. The problem, at the time, was that I was an insecure teen, trying to find his place in the world. Therefore, I did what pretty much all insecure people do, and made it about me. In Pokémon, you are taught to desire rare and powerful animals, marks of distinction, the promise of a great destiny. Therefore, I boarded the bandwagon and made it work out in Matt's story, until I was exasperated with how little I seemed to have accomplished for my efforts. A man wrapped up in himself makes a very small bundle indeed. Had I continued this comic to the bitter end, Matt might or might not have eventually become a Pokémon master. It makes no difference. He's just another guy with a team of Pokémon, strutting his hour upon the stage, then heard no more. His was a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Even so, I am glad to have gotten this experience. I am better for it. Do you want to know what changed? In my case, it was my acceptance of the Lord Jesus Christ as my Savior. That, and a decade of maturity. Now, that's not to say that unbelievers can't write meaningful works, but everyone's gotta worship someone. It can either be ourselves or something else larger. At least in the latter case, there's a chance of writing something compelling. Now, before I end this exhibit from my middle school days, it turns out that there were other cartoons in the folder I'd kept. Cartoons of, Barney the dinosaur getting his ass kicked. I'll do 5 of them for anyone morbidly interested enough to still be hanging around at this point. Okay, so here's a good transitional one. It's an excerpt from a longer comic about a time when Barney went to Pokémon camp. It's put on like a play, which is why the first 4 panels are an intermission between the 3rd and 4th act. Sorry about the next few faded panels. For sake of context, Pokémon camp has 2 lakes for swimming. The counselor in charge has just told everyone else to come with him to one lake while sending Barney alone to the other. Barney ponders why, even while passing a ton of warning signs. I mean, there are a buttload of warning signs, with graphics and everything. Barney even looks up at one point to see an airplane flying overhead with a sky banner that reads, "Last Chance." But because he's ignorant and stupid, Barney leaps blissfully into the water full of Krabby and Kingler. Sure enough, they start pinching him as soon as he's vulnerable. A Kingler latches onto his tail, and Barney screams so loud that all the kids at the other lake stop and stare. On this next page, I have some guy in a hat as part of the audience, who happens to be the lone Barney fan. He's actually been heckling the play for a while, but when he threatens to stop it by force, the rest of the audience beat him up. Back in the play, Barney escapes the hostile lake and flees to his tent. Later, during lunchtime, the camp counselor takes roll call and notices Barney's absence. He stomps angrily to the tent, and Barney fears that the crab Pokémon are coming to get him. The counselor, who happens to also be the trainer of several Krabby, decides that he'll punish Barney's truancy by calling the crabs on him again. Several pinches later, Barney retreats to the mess hall. He slides up to the food, which is like spinach loaf or something. He takes a bite, immediately throws up in his mouth, and dashes madly for the restroom. In his haste, he enters the wrong bathroom, and the girls slap him silly. Look, it's all extremely childish and goofy. If you were expecting something more from my middle school days, well, sorry to disappoint. This next comic is totally separate, but it establishes one thing. The camp counselor was actually Duke Nukem. In fact, in nearly every Barney comic I drew, the antagonist was Duke Nukem. Don't ask why. On this page, I conjure a Narnia door between the Barneyverse and Duke Nukem's world. The Duke hears an annoying song, levels his firearm, and lights up the purple dinosaur. Because of cartoon physics, Barney lives through a laser gun blast. In an unusual display of ballsiness, Barney passes through the portal to the Duke's side, demanding an apology. For his trouble, he gets shot in the face, exploded by a landmine, and incinerated a second time in the elevator. Where exactly was I going with this? Nowhere really. It's just that I had a little brother watching PBS at the time, and every time I heard the I Love You song, I wanted to inflict brutal Tom and Jerry violence on that purple bastard. Here's another one, which I cleverly titled Barney Takes the Metro. Here we have Barney singing to himself as he enters the metro station, in his usual state of blissful ignorance. He falls off the platform onto the tracks, and the train immediately runs him over. Barney painfully drags himself back out, and the train conductor, Duke Nukem as always, screams in his face to hurry aboard. Barney heads for the doors, but they snap shut before he reaches them. The train starts to pull away. Barney manages to leap atop the last car like Mario, but then it goes into the tunnel, splatting him against the top. Barney chases the Metro with super speed until the next stop, where he rams his head into the rear car. The next time a train arrives, he actually manages to get all the way in. However, he leans back out the double doors while saying goodbye to the station, and they snap shut, choking him. Don't look at me like that. You probably ate this sort of stuff up as a kid. Okay, last one. Barney at karate. Here we have Barney enjoying his time on a swing when he sees Duke Nukem coming at him. The Duke soon has him pinned to a wall, where he pulls a gun on the purple child toucher. Too bad it's a pop gun. Barney laughs in his face, and the next battle is a jump cut to the aftermath of his beating. Through a black eye, several missing teeth, Barney announces to nobody that he needs to learn karate. This marks yet another comic that I never finished, but I suppose it ends on a happy note, as Barney could hope for. I mean, yeah, he receives a Chuck Norris flying roundhouse kick to the face, but the sensei acknowledges that he could take a hit and accepts him into the dojo. That better be it. I know this is a bit anticlimactic to end on, but I couldn't showcase middle school comics and leave out the Barney stuff. I hope you were entertained. Until next time, you have a good one.